Welcome back to Mountain West Men's Basketball Media Days, powered by Air Force Reserve. It's time now to head to the Air Force Academy and bring in the head coach of the Air Force Falcons, Joe Scott. Joe, it's great to see you once again, my friend.
Good to see you, Jesse. Good to be having a basketball media day. So look forward to talking with you over the next couple minutes.
Yeah, likewise. If you have a question for Coach Scott, please raise your hand. We'll get you in queue, and we will call on you at the appropriate time. Joe, you're back at the Air Force Academy, first season back. This is a team that you inherit that went 12-20 in 2019. You return one starter. Why come back to the Air Force Academy? You had stops at the University of Denver. You had stops at Princeton, Holy Cross, Georgia. Why was it time now to come back to the place where you had so much success leading a team to a Mountain West championship and an NCAA tournament appearance?
Well, I think, one is, to use your word, time. Why is it time? Well, it was time. It's been, a number of years. I've had a lot of different experiences coaching, 30 years of coaching, 16 as a head coach, just as importantly, 4 after being a head coach of going back to being an assistant. And like I've said before, these past 4 years have been really good for me. It gave me the right kind of perspective, at this time. And, there's no doubt for me that I know this is the right place for me to coach. It's the right place, like I said, right place, right time. And I feel strongly and with the right people here, whether that's the administration, whether that's our players, I feel really strongly about that. And, I know I'm really fortunate and we're really grateful to have this opportunity. But I know, again, we're doing it with the right people.
You have a question for Joe Scott, raise your hand. We will call on you. You will be allowed a question and a follow-up. If you do have a follow-up, leave your hand up. If you do not have a follow-up, you can take your hand down. Our first question comes from the voice of the Falcons, Jim Arthur. Jim?
Joe, how you doing?
Jim Arthur, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Joe, if your system has any similarities to what Air Force has run the past 6-7 years, and I'm talking offensively now, if that's the case, has it been somewhat a little bit easier to get the fellas to acclimate to your system in terms of offense and what you're trying to do?
Obviously there are similarities, but I think what our players have found, boy, is it really, really different. So to your question, I think our players have been able to pick up things and understand what we're trying to get them to understand as they're able to see, wow, this is really, really different. So it's been a good environment, a good teaching environment, I think a good learning environment. And I really think our guys have done really well. But definitely it's definitely not like other places I've been where you go in and you're teaching something that's almost, completely different. For our guys, there was some level of understanding, but they've really had a lot to learn that's different, but still based in certain concepts. In the game of basketball, there's only, 10, 12 different concepts, no matter what system you run. And so our guys are just learning, how they come about, when they come about, and what our points of emphasis and what our details are.
As Jesse mentioned, you have just one starter back, and that's A.J. Walker. But you have a lot of guys back who've played a lot of time. Abe Kinraid, Amika Akaya, Chris Joyce. Has that helped that they've had that experience to maybe easily adjust into what you're trying to do?
Well, and obviously there's one other, Keaton Van Solen is in with those guys. And I just addressed this with the team yesterday and with those guys yesterday. I think it's been a good situation again to be put in, because those 4 guys, although having played and had some minutes, they have not been counted upon. They weren't the ones counted upon to make Air Force do well. The situation that we're in, 6 seniors, I believe, left who were counted upon. These other guys, these 4 guys that we're talking about, the real question for them is just going to be they've had experience. but they haven't had the experience of being counted upon. And now it's going to be, that's the question for us is that maturity level, the acceptance of that responsibility, how quick they come to really know what that means, because that's going to have a large part of to do with, our success. And you never know, and you don't never get your answer, Jim, on what I'm talking about until you're in that situation, until you are the number 2 guy, until you are the number 3 guy in whatever it is. It's like anything. When you go from being the 8th guy to the 4th guy, your responsibility level goes up. I oftentimes I equate it to a utility infielder in baseball. The utility infielder plays every 4th day and he hits 320, and everybody starts to say, hey, how come that guy doesn't start? How come he's not an everyday guy? And you find out why he's utility infielder guy when you start to play him every day. So that's sort of these guys. They are going to be everyday guys, and they're going to have to learn real quickly what that means. And like I said, we're addressing it already with those guys 3 weeks before our first game to start to get them mentally ready to be able to handle that maturely, the right way, and to be able to be really accepting of having that responsibility on their shoulders.
Thank you, Jim. Next question for you, Coach Scott, comes from Davis Potter of the Casper Star Tribune.
Hey, Joe. Wyoming hired a new coach itself in Jeff Linder, who came from Northern Colorado. I'm just curious if you're familiar with Jeff at all and his system, and maybe what you expect to see from Wyoming this season.
Yeah, I do know Jeff. I mean, when I was at Denver, the head coach at Denver, I think he was with Leon at Boise. He's from Colorado originally. Obviously then going from Boise to Northern Colorado, he has a lot of familiarity in this region. So I think that's going to be a big benefit to Jeff. He obviously did a really good job, one being with Leon, and then he did a really good job at Northern Colorado. So like any new situation, I think it's going to come down to similar things that we're doing here. How many guys are returning, what 6th man, 7th man's going to step up for them and, become, a starter and accept that responsibility. But I know Jeff's going to do a good job. He's had great experience. He's had that experience in this region. He knows this. I think he knows this league, and all those things are going to be a benefit to them. And, Wyoming is going to move forward. I know that for certain.
We are now moving on to Andrew Nepson of KTVN in Reno.
Hey, Coach, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Excellent. So entering this season, which will undoubtedly be unique and one of the most unprecedented seasons we'll probably ever see with COVID going on and everything, what kind of mentality and mindset do you want your guys to have heading into this season?
Well, I mean, I think as coaches, every coach probably in this league and across the country, always says, I think, control the things you can control. I mean, they're always saying that to their teams and, stressing those things. I think in this environment, that's got to be the mantra, because that's what it is. That's what it is every day. And there are going to be things where, I say you got to be able to roll with the punches. Because things are going to change. You got to be able to adjust, adapt. You can't let things that sort of you don't control get you down. You know what I mean? That this whole thing we all know has been a tough situation across the country for everybody in so many ways. We're fortunate to be able to be playing basketball. That being said, I think the key is to, be able to keep a clear mind, not have things get you down, and really in some respects stay focused on how fortunate we are that we are playing college basketball, that you have a chance to be on the court, and for us, I know we're stressing, make sure there's joy in how we play the game. I mean, we're playing basketball, and we got to make sure that no matter what happens, as things change, that we stay focused on playing basketball and knowing how lucky we are to be playing. And we go out every day. We practice that way. We make sure we play that way when the games come. And if we can do that, I think that equals controlling the things you can control. And I think that's really got to be what everybody's saying to a large extent. I think it's going to be who's the best at doing that, because I think everybody's going to be affected at some point in time.
And then, Coach, the obligatory media day question of your thoughts of your guys' placement in the preseason poll and what you think y'all are capable of this year.
Well, what place would that be? I didn't even, I usually, like every coach says, you have the obligatory media day question. I have the obligatory coach answer. I don't look at polls, so I do know we're picked down the bottom. And, to be honest, I mean, when you're in this situation that we're in here, new coach, again, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, when I was here before, we were picked last, we were picked last every year. So it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is how well how good we get at what we do, how important what we do is to us, how much we care about what we do, and how much that's the only things that we really focus on. And this group of guys who, so far, I've really enjoyed coaching. They've done a really good job of responding to the coaching. They want to be coached. It's just going to come down to, for us, can we stay on that trajectory? When we get hit, we're going to get punched in the face. Things aren't always going to go well. And it's just going to be, how tough are we? How much do we stay with it? And how much do we keep knowing it's about us and how much we care about what we're doing? And if we can do that, then I like our team. We'll take our chances. And I know one thing, we're going to be playing to win here at Air Force. Every time we step on the court, we're going to play to win. We're going to play to win for 40 minutes. And so long as I see that, then I know we're on our way to playing Air Force basketball.
Thank you, Andrew. Our next question comes from Brent Brigham of the Colorado Springs Gazette.
Hi, Coach. Can you tell me what's going on at Air Force in terms of, are you guys able to get on the floor still in practice, or have you had to take a break?
Look, to your question, Brent, we are, there is a pause, obviously, with the football games getting canceled. I think we are able to do certain things, but we're trying to, within the campus community, get a handle on, the health and the safety on the campus. Within that, as that being the priority, certain teams in certain situations, given, in season, we have a game coming up in 17 days. So we're able to do some things. We're not able to do, say, everything. And I think that goes to, the question of this year. That's going to be an ongoing thing, throughout the season. And we just have to be able to adjust, adapt. Do you have your whole team? Do you not have your whole team? That's going to go on all year. And, on some respects, to your question, we're going through that a little bit right now. Hopefully that's given us some experience as we get through the season. So if something happened, okay, we've sort of dealt with it. So I know our administration's doing a really good job of that. And we're trying to, again, make sure the health and safety of the, the cadets, athletes, the cadets in general, the community at large on campus, we're really focused on that.
And with the two-game series format, because you guys run unique, offense and defensive sets, is that going to work against you, that a team would gain a little bit of a, familiarity in that first game?
I mean, I think that's a good question. Oftentimes I believe unique, whatever, that's all made up stuff, because basketball is basketball, and, there's ball screens, there's screening without the ball. It's just there's only 10 to 12 concepts and everybody uses them. It's just how you use them and how you put them together. I think the thing that's going to be different and challenging is to the same thing that you're asking, that familiarity both ways, almost like, NBA playoff series. We're going to have all these mini sort of 2-game series where both teams know each other really well, and being able to sort of compete in that environment. I think it's really going to come down to that, like who's tougher, who competes more, because both teams are going to know what the other team's doing. especially the second night. But even in this format, I almost think every first game, the other team's going to have 5 days to get ready for the first game. They obviously are getting, 5 games a game to get ready for the second game. It's going both ways. I think you got to be ready for some like slugfest. Who's tougher? Who's grittier? Who's going to hang in there for 40 minutes because of that familiarity?
Thank you, Brent. Next question, Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Union Tribune.
Coach, I'm curious just how much your system, your offensive system specifically, has changed since the first time you were at Air Force, because obviously basketball is constantly changing and morphing and transforming, and the shot clock is shorter now, the 3-point line is longer. But how when we see your team play, how different is it going to look from your first go around at Air Force?
I think it's going to look a lot different. I think you're going to see differences, but obviously you're going to see similarities. Hopefully the similarity you're going to see is a team playing together, 5 guys playing together, sharing the ball, moving the ball, all the things that every coach wants from their team. But for us, doing it in a quicker fashion. Offensive basketball in the end, no matter what your system is, comes down to timing, spacing, and skill. Spacing, timing, and skill. That's all it comes down to, because like I've already said, nobody's inventing any sort of like new concepts in the game of basketball. It's ball screens. What's different is, again, and who's really good at and efficient at what they do comes down to their spacing, timing, and efficiency in that, the skill level required to do that. And then, in our case, having 5 guys who can do that all together at the same time. So, a lot of people today, Mark, say, positionless basketball. And my view of positionless basketball is there's no such thing. There's always going to be positions in basketball. You're never going to change that there's positions. Positionless means that you can have 5 guys who can play any one of those positions. And hopefully, our team's going to grow in that direction. Like I said, you'll see some similarities, but you're going to see, differences. But hopefully the thing that most people recognize is, boy, those guys play hard. They play together. They share the ball. They do it on both ends, and they're playing to win. And if Air Force is playing that way, that's when Air Force has its best chance to win every night they go out on the court.
As a follow-up to that, what's been the biggest impact on how your typical type, what you want to call Princeton, Chin, whatever, offense is run? Is it the switching? Is the switching defenses that we've seen more prevalence of? Is it the shot clock? Is it the 3-point line? What's been the biggest impact on why it's had to change a little bit?
Well, I do think, obviously I can go back to my first time here. To your point, even back then, everybody started to switch. So then we came up with something, and I think that was a big thing that helped us that year. But just continuing forward, I think across the board, shot clock can be one. But I think the biggest thing, especially in college basketball, is technology. Everybody can watch every single game that you ever play. Back in 2000, I think we might have still been having VCR tapes. We were doing film exchange, and the other team had to send us 3 tapes, and we had to agree to it. Now it doesn't matter where you are. You can watch every game that every other team plays. And as you say that, there's every school in this league has nothing but good coaches, from the head coach on down to the assistant coaches. They have good players. And now you put that with that kind of technology and that kind of scouting. I think what you see is just the level of knowledge that you go out every single night against is raised. And all that means is you got to raise your level to whatever you're doing, your level of execution, your players' level of understanding of what's most important on both ends of the court. And again, your players' level of caring for those things. That is required today because everybody you play is prepared and well coached. And that's why I think if you look at college basketball, I've already said to my team over and over in certain situations, how many college basketball games are decided by one possession? How many college basketball games do you see that are decided by two? How many are decided in the last 3 minutes? You know, oh my, so many of them. So what it comes down to is those little details, and you have to be good at those things. And I think that's what's made, you know, that's what's changed the most, in my opinion.
Thank you. Next question, and the final question will come from Albuquerque, KRQE's Van Tate.
Coach, just wanted to ask you about facing New Mexico this year, because the guy you replaced will be on the bench with Paul Weir. And I'm talking about Pilipovich. And I remember you from the first time. I don't know if you remember when the first time you were around. I used to talk to you all the time, but yeah. Can you talk about what you think that might feel like, and what does Pilipovich bring to New Mexico?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, in this day and age, you know, things change. You got to move on. You know, I'm glad Dave's has that opportunity with Paul down there in New Mexico. I think, you know, obviously he's a veteran of the league. He knows the league. I think that's obviously going to be helpful to them. You know, as it pertains to us, you know, obviously it's probably a really good question for our players, but you know, I'd like to think that, you know, circumstances change. You got to adapt. You know, from day one here, I know all I've focused on is coaching these guys. I haven't focused really on, you know, what happened, or, you know, none of it really matters. You know, what matters is, you know, AJ is going to be coming on here, and what matters is AJ Walker getting better. You know, are we coaching AJ Walker to the best of our ability to get him to be the best he can be, you know, to lead this team? And that goes right on down the line through all our players. You know, that's really all it comes down to. And I don't think you can make you can't make too big a deal. You know, we're going to play New Mexico twice. And when we step on that court, we're playing to win. And I know they're playing to win. Or is he going to know a little bit about our players and their tendencies? Obviously, yes. You know, but in the grand scheme of things, I think what it's going to come down to is on that night, you know, actually, what is it going to be on whatever those back-to-back, you know, Friday, Sunday, or Thursday, Saturday, when we play each other, it's going to come down to, you know, which team has the players that fight the hardest, have the most grit, like I said earlier, stick with it, know their stuff, believe in it, and are going to fight for 40 minutes, you know, and that's who's going to win those two games. You know, I don't know if I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to when we get to play New Mexico once here, and we get to go to the pit once, because I know how challenging that place is. But I don't know if I'm going to be looking forward to going to the pit twice. But we both know it's not going to be the same this year in the pit, which is one of the, you know, most unbelievable environments in college basketball. So I'm looking forward to the day when that comes. You know, can we get some normalcy so that when I do get back there, it is 18,000 fans and you can't hear a word, and you got to be able to be tough and compete in that kind of environment. And I think that's what makes New Mexico a special place.
Van, thank you for the question. And Coach Scott, thank you for your time. It's terrific to see you and great to have you back in the Mountain West.
All right, Jesse, thanks for having me on, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. That's Joe Scott, the head coach of the Air Force Falcons, in his return to the Air Force Academy. Of course, we are now going to be waiting for AJ Walker, junior guard from San Antonio, Texas. He will join us here shortly. He is the lone returning starter for Joe Scott, who's in his second stint at Air Force, did coach the Falcons from 01 to 04. He mentioned this team back in the day were always picked last, but that 2004, one of the most magical runs in college sports history, where the Falcons won a regular season championship and advanced to the NCAA tournament, where they faced North Carolina at Pepsi Center in Denver. Joe Scott was named Mountain West Coach of the Year that year before he departed for his alma mater at Princeton, and then had a couple of stops in between his return to Air Force. And he inherits a a great player in A.J. Walker, ranked 7th in the Mountain West in assist to turnover ratio. And let's head right back to the Air Force Academy and bring in that junior guard from San Antonio, Texas, A.J. Walker. A.J., great to have you on. Appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. First of all, happy Veterans Day to all of the folks at the Air Force Academy. I know it's a special day up on the hill, so we start with that. Secondly, you're the lone returning starter, and Coach Scott talked about you don't know what you don't know until you're put into this offense and this role with the new head coach. How have things changed for you this season?
First thing that's been changing for me was just obviously the coaching staff. So that was a big thing. But then just practices every day, like Coach Scott was saying when he was on here, just the energy he brings is unbelievable. Like every day is new, and every day he's trying to get more and more out of you, which I love it. He's trying to pick which spots you need to work on, and he understands the game. So like we really link together as well as with the other coaches.
I do know that about Joe Scott. He will drag the very best out of each and every one of you. Our first question comes from the voice of the Air Force Falcons, Jim Arthur. Jim?
AJ, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, sir.
AJ, you look actually a little bit bigger. There's some muscle on those arms right there. You spent some time in the weight room, it looks like.
Just a little bit.
You had a decision to make. Originally, you considered transferring. And of course, you're thinking about transferring. You've got a new coaching staff coming in. What ultimately were the one or two things that helped you decide to come back to the academy?
My family, just talking to my family a lot. They're my biggest supporters, so I talk to them almost every day. And then just a lot of conversation with Coach Scott and the rest of the coaching staff. I mean, I asked him some tough questions. He asked me some tough questions, and we got along pretty well from the start. And we have the same mindset, same drive of trying to get better every day, and then that end goal of winning the tournament.
AJ, Joe has said to me that, he's really counting on you to kind of be him, if you will, on the floor and when you're playing. And you're the only returning starter, although fellows around you have played. Do you feel that responsibility a little more? Have you already seen that responsibility a little bit more during practice?
Not necessarily. I mean, nothing's really changed like drastically. I just know that if I take care of what I need to take care of, and I trust my guys around me to also help me and push me to get better. So practices every day are good because they push me to be the best, and I try to push them as well. So together, we're just trying to get better.
Thank you, Jim, for the questions. We stick in Colorado Springs and bring in Brent Brigham of the Colorado Springs Gazette. Brent?
Yeah, AJ, talking to players from the first time Joe Scott was at Air Force, his practices are notorious for not only his energy, but I mean, kind of the crazy factor. Like, do you still see some of that in him?
I wouldn't say crazy. I say more passionate. So, I mean, he's real passionate about the game just as we are. So, I mean, it's a lot of conversations, but they're all good conversations on the court. And, I mean, we just get after it every day, which is fun.
And what's it been like over the last week? What are you guys doing as a team? Assuming you don't have access to the floor, I don't know exactly what's going on, but what's it been like for the last week?
It's crazy just with the situation we're in now with just COVID, and then like Coach was saying earlier, just the community up here on the hill is just, we're just trying to figure out the obstacles, get over the hurdles, things like that. So we're just trying to stay ready so we don't have to get ready. So that's his biggest thing, is just always be prepared, because you never know. Like next day we have practice, and the day after that we just can't have practice, but you can be in your room, do push-ups, sit-ups, things like that. So there's ways around it. It's different, but I mean, we're making it work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Next up from Hoops HD, John Teetle.
Hey, AJ, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just following up on the initial introduction, what is it like to be at the Air Force on Veterans Day? Is it just another day? Is it the most special day of the year, or something in between?
I mean, I'd say just another day. I mean, we're taking care of what we need to take care of, but the people that came before us and came after us, I mean, that's a big thing. It's like talking to the grads that graduated last year, like Sid Tomes, Ryan Swan, Caleb Morris, LaShawn and Vel, I mean, just seeing what they're doing out in the Air Force is kind of crazy because I was just playing basketball with them just a couple months ago. So, I mean, those people are really the role models for me as far as like knowing that we have that bond just on the basketball court. But now that they're in their Air Force career, I can ask them questions, and I mean, they're really paving the way for me.
Thank you, John. Final question for you here, AJ. You got a couple of guys that have seen some minutes. Obviously, a lot of things have changed now with a new way of going about your offense. What do Chris Joyce and Keaton Van Soling bring to this program in a new and exciting way with a new offense?
I mean, they're great. I mean, they always push me to get better, and I'm trying to be like them. They always have that good energy every day. The bond we have is crazy. I mean, I know what Chris's spot is on the floor as well as Keaton, and they know mine. So, I mean, we mesh together really well, and I mean, it's going to be fun this year. I'm excited for it.
Well, we're excited to see the Falcons back in action under a new head coach, that being Joe Scott. AJ, I appreciate your time. Again, happy Veterans Day to all up at the Air Force Academy, and look forward to seeing you on the court here soon.
Thank you.